Hey everyone, Christian here, the host of How to Talk Good. I just wanted to give a quick forward to this episode. So my guest on this episode requested to not be on video, so this episode will be audio only. She also requested that we use only her first name. This episode went long, so I decided to split into two parts. Be sure to check back next week for episode 2 to hear the rest of our conversation. This episode includes graphic discussions of drug use, suicide, childhood abandonment, and physical and mental abuse and violence. I wanted to give a warning to anyone listening who may be sensitive to these subjects. Many of these topics may not appear until episode 2, but I wanted to give a heads up on this episode as well in case I missed anything. With that being said, thanks for listening, and let's start the show. Welcome to How to Talk Good, the show that believes you can learn something from anyone. My guest today is a good friend of mine I've known for many years. It's been a long journey getting to where we're at now. She has requested that her last name not be included, but please welcome Sarah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah.
Well, I think a good place to start would be, are you nervous?
I am a little nervous. You know, we talked about this beforehand, but I've never done anything like this, so yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking.
What about it makes you nervous?
Just knowing that people are going to hear this, and in some ways that's exciting, in some ways that's scary, considering what some of the content of this podcast may be.
But you're already planning on going deep, huh?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's avoidable when you talk about my backstory and the things that I've been through. It's just kind of part of who I am, so that's one of the reasons I'm a little nervous. But I
think that's fair. Well, if it helps you at all, just know that, there might be a few people that end up listening to this, but for the most part, this is just me and you sitting down having a conversation, just getting to know more about each other, and me trying to get a better idea of what makes Sarah Sarah and where she came from.
I mean, you're definitely the right person to ask the right questions because you know me better than almost anybody.
I could say the same about you.
So I definitely think that this is going to be an interesting conversation because we've never done it in this context. All of our conversations have always mostly been private. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how other individuals respond to my take. Yeah.
Well, don't think about that too deeply. Mostly look at me and think that you're hanging out with me. So talk the same way you normally would. So I think we should talk about first how we met and how our relationship started. And so I can tell my perspective, but I'd like you to start with your perspective. What is your memories of meeting me?
So when I first met you, the very first time I physically met you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I have to give a little backstory to that. So we have a mutual friend. I won't use her name here just for reasons. But we have a mutual friend who I lived with at the time. And she had invited me to a party. And you were the driver to said party. So when I got in your car for the very first time is when I met you. And
you met me as a chauffeur.
Yeah, and you were wearing your My Little Pony shirt and your red and yellow basketball shorts, which I still have, by the way. And I don't know, you said something to me, and then we ended up just talking the whole time because I ended up riding in the front because our friend and her boyfriend were in the back. Right. And we stopped at Walmart and I bought you cigarettes.
You did. And I was quite poor at that time. Yeah. It was very evident by the car I drove.
And then, and I still feel bad about this, we got to the party, we were hanging out talking. I then decided to compare you to either Jesus or a pedophile. And then
what made you? I can understand that first word, the first comparison, because Jesus, I had long hair and a beard. Why the second one?
Because at the time your beard and mustache were so much fuller and you were just a little bit bigger, and I don't know, I think I mostly just said it as a joke, to break the ice.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, because you laugh at everything I said back then.
For those that don't know, we eventually ended up being in a relationship for 6 years.
6 or 7.
Right. We're no longer in that relationship,
No,
but we're still very good friends. Just to provide some context.
Yeah.
So, how long did it take before meeting me that you knew that you were into me?
Do you want me to be honest, or do you want me to give...
No, be honest. Don't.
I mean, I went home with you that night, so
yeah, you did, yeah.
I think that made it pretty obvious.
Do you remember how we started flirting after we met? There's 2 things.
Are you talking about when I first got in the car? Or
There's that, yeah.
when you reached between my legs to see if I'd flinch or not?
Well, I wasn't just reaching between you. That makes it sound like I was trying to grab her by the pussy.
No. No, it was more like you were reaching down in a floorboard for something.
Right.
And like...
Which I did actually have something I wanted to grab, but it was also a test.
And then the keychain.
You remember the keychain? Okay.
I remember the keychain.
All right, tell me your recollections on that.
Because we were sitting in the Jimmy. And the Jimmy is a car that you had. It's a GMC.
1992 GMC Jimmy.
And the first probably 4 years of our relationship were very much in that car. I mean, we had a home and stuff, but we just spent a lot of time in the car because we went to a lot of Magic tournaments and conventions and stuff. So the Jimmy was very near and dear to us. Unfortunately, the Jimmy died, then got resurrected and sold, and is gone now. But
right. Still, we hold it dear in our hearts.
Yeah, but
so we were in the Jimmy.
We were in the Jimmy smoking cigarettes at the time. And I was fiddling with my lanyard keys because you were on the phone with someone.
A girl I was talking to at the time. This is going to make me end up sounding like a bad person, isn't it?
But we started fighting over the keychain. And then we had our first kiss in the Jimmy. Because you pulled me close with the keychain.
Right. Yep. I didn't care about the keychain at all.
I know you didn't.
It was a Nightmare Before Christmas.
Lanyard and keychain. The lanyard was purple and had Jack and Sally on it. And then the actual key, decoration, I don't know exactly, keychain, whatever, had Jack. It was like the purple coffin and it had Jack on the inside. I just don't know what happened to that lanyard.
And I had to... I pretended like I wanted it so badly, oh, this is so awesome, I need this, and I pretended like I was going to steal it from you, but it was all just a ploy.
Yep.
You knew the game we were playing.
Of course I did. I wasn't an idiot. I mean, we were both adults.
Right.
I was 21, 22 when we met.
You were 20 and I was 24. You were either... Yeah, you were 20 and I was 24.
Yeah, because I had just turned 20, right before we met.
Right, and I was about to turn 25. We were about 5-year difference.
Yeah.
Now, what happened after that? You don't have to go into specific detail, but...
I mean, we went back to your place and hung out. You had Magic memorabilia and stuff on the wall, so I started asking you about that. I spent the night there. We went to McDonald's at about 4 a.m.
We did, yeah.
And then I just hung out with you till that afternoon when I went home.
Yeah.
Because at the time, obviously, we weren't living together.
Right. Now, it wasn't... How long were we dating, do you think, before we ended up moving in together? Because it wasn't long after that we ended up becoming official.
Oh, you started staying at the trailer probably about 2 or 3 weeks after we met, full time.
Yeah, I did, didn't I?
Because you got tired of going back and forth between Owington and Taylor Mill.
Right. Didn't I stay with at my mom's for a little bit, but mostly officially stayed at my mom's for a little while because she lived a lot closer to you?
Yeah, because you and Steve, I hope that's okay to say, moved out of your apartment in Taylor Mill, and then
I moved in with my mom.
You started staying at your mom's, but because your mom's was so close to where I lived, you you would come over to my house for like 2 or 3 days and then go home.
Right.
And then you'd come back and stay, and then you just ended up just started staying there. Like, you just didn't go back to your mom's except to get some stuff.
Right, and we ended up, having the same job eventually and living together and, there was a couple breaks in between, but for the most part we were together and living together for 6 years.
Yep. We'll get into that later.
We'll get into that later. So, we're very closely connected, know each other very well, very comfortable with each other.
Yes. Excuse me.
Never.
Rude as hell.
Always. As it usually goes when you're in a relationship and living with someone, we just spent so much time together and we took so much from each other and discovered so many things together. Like, I gave you magic. Yeah. Which is, since then, still, it's always been a big part of your life ever since you discovered it.
Yeah. It's been a huge part of it. I don't want to say that it was the basis of our relationship, but it was a big part of who we were for a long time. That's
Magic the Gathering, not like doing magic tricks for anyone who doesn't understand.
It's a card game.
Yeah, it's a collectible card game. It's a thing.
It's like Pokemon, but way harder.
Yeah, Pokemon for adults. I mean, not that Pokemon's not for adults. But...
Yeah, but the rules are much more complicated.
Right, yeah.
I could talk about the stack all day, but we won't go
Right, let's not talk about the stack.
I know.
And then a couple years after we started dating, or maybe only a year, we discovered Good Mythical Morning together and our love of Rhett and Link and all things mythical.
Yes. Any mythical beasts out there, shout out to y'all, because, we're right there with you.
Little beasties.
Yeah.
All the little beasties.
Yes. Goodness.
Yeah. And that's still a big part of both of our lives, too, and a big part of our friendship now.
Most definitely.
We'll get together every now and then, just watch Good Mythical Morning or mythical stuff together.
Because, last time that I was over, I literally said this, but, me and you can look at mythical and, determine where we were in certain points at our lives.
Right.
Because of it. Because we've literally, we started watching when they were in, their 4th or 5th season.
Right,
They're in season 16 now?
21 or 20.
Is it
21 or 22, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I have to definitely agree.
Sorry for that slurping sound. Does the ASMR crowd like that?
Oh, no, don't do that. Oh, God, that's the worst.
Some people, I don't know.
I don't think anyone wants to hear that.
There might be some listeners enjoying themselves way too much now. I don't know. I'm not very well versed on the ASMR community. I'm
going to tell you right now, as someone who experiences ASMR, that was not good ASMR.
No, I do too. And I talked about this on my other podcast, shout out to Not Almost Famous, about I only experience it when... I remember the first time when I was a little kid, I experienced it when a teacher was reading. But it was a certain way. Very slow and methodical, almost felt like hypnotism, and made the top of my head tingle, and then the rest of my body kind of tingle. Is that sort of how you experience it too?
Yeah, I feel it more in my neck and my back, but specifically for me, the best one for me is the sand scooping. Specifically sand scooping. I don't know why, but that's...
People can't see.
Ish is good.
She's holding up the...
As you can see, we can't.
The nice, circle, hand symbol is good. So, but you do get the tingles.
I do.
The typical, tingle feeling. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that's something, we both get that, I don't know if we knew that before we were dating.
Yeah, but I think that's how a lot of people, not obviously not everyone, but I feel like that's how a lot of ASMR experience is for a lot of people. It's usually tingliness. Yeah. You can have other sensations, but that's definitely the main one is the tingly feel goods.
Right. Eventually we did end up splitting up. It was my decision the last time we split up.
Yes.
And I'm not going to go into whether it was a good or bad thing, but I think it's something that needed to happen for my journey to continue and for me to grow. I try to live life without regrets. But there was just a lot going on at that time, and a lot of factors that that led to us splitting up. If anyone listening can hear a cat meowing, that's my cat Luna at the door trying to get into the studio. So apologies for anyone distracted by that.
Yeah, she's very insistent on being in rooms that have the door closed, so she will be continuing to do that probably the whole time.
She has torn up many carpets.
Actually, I will
okay, Sarah,
try to get her to stop quietly.
Yes, Sarah's gonna try to take care of that problem.
Shh. Go away. No. Face she gives me.
Never a boring day here at How to Talk Good.
No, never.
Never a boring day at the studio house.
No, it's not with your friends. You have an eclectic crew of people that are in your life. They're all wonderful individuals, but they're all very different people.
Well, let's talk about Luna, who is, like, we'll say both of our cats, but lives with me. She stayed with me the last time we split up, too. You actually picked Luna out.
Yes.
She started out as your cat.
Yes, I used to work at this gas station truck stop, and one of the waitresses, her cat had kittens, and I was wanting a cat or an animal real bad, and the people we lived with already had cats, so I didn't really want to get a dog, and she was giving them away for free, so I went and I knew I wanted a female, and I picked her out because she has one and it doesn't, like, it's only on her nose. She has a little stripe of orange right down. And that's what made me pick her out. And she's the best cat I have ever had. Like, I don't think I've ever experienced a cat. And I'm not saying there's not other cats like that, but me personally, I've never experienced a cat as, like, loving and human, affectionate as she is. Like, she loves people.
Now, I know what you mean, but explain to people who may not know Luna what you mean.
She always wants to be, like, around you. Specifically Christian. You're her person. She chose you.
We kind of bonded instantly, like,
yes.
when I started coming around her.
Yeah, she definitely chose you for sure. Like, you're her person. But even in general, she just loves to be around people. She wants to be, like, where people are conversing, like, excuse me. She wants to be pet constantly. She wants to be she just wants to be around you all the time. That's really the only, like, and she's when she wants you to pet her or something, she's very aggressive about it.
She is.
She'll scream at you or talk at you and headbutt you until you give her what she wants.
What about the belly rubs?
She loves belly rubs, but you're the only person she really, like, lets do it, though. She doesn't really trust anyone else like that. Like, she's not afraid of anyone that comes here, but she really doesn't.
I don't know. I've had several people just come over and her just flop on her back, like, rub my belly.
Well, she didn't used to be that way, though.
Right.
That's like within the last couple of years she's been like that.
Right. She's very trusting.
Yeah, she's very much, but she's never had a reason to not be trusting of people. So
animals very much take on what you put into them. They put out what you put into them. So if you put a lot of love and attention and care into them, that's what they're going to give back.
She definitely got a lot of that, especially as a kitten.
Oh yeah.
Because at the time when I first got her, when she was like 7 weeks old, I think, when I got her, it was you and I, our mutual friend, her boyfriend, and then 2 other individuals, and also 2 other cats at the time.
Right.
So she got a lot of attention, and shout out to Galaxy, the big fluffy kitty, because he really took her under his wing. He really showed her how to be a cat.
This is a segment of the show where we shout out all of our past pets.
No, just Galaxy, because he like showed her how to use the litter box, and like just like basically was kind of like her mom almost.
Yeah.
He took her like really under his wing and took good care of her.
Her first friend. Her first cat friend.
Yeah, which is funny because she hasn't had a cat friend up until now.
Right.
With Annabelle.
Right. The other little one I have. Annabelle's a little gray striped.
She's my little crackhead lemur monkey baby. Yeah. I love her.
Big eyes, small face, pointy ears.
She came to us last year.
Right.
Well, actually, no. The year before last, actually. So 2020. It was June or July.
Right, and we split up in September of 2021.
No, it was
September 2020. Yes, right, okay.
Because me and my current boyfriend have been together since January of 2021.
Right, okay.
We actually just hit our year anniversary.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, January 14th.
Wow, that's awesome. It's crazy how time flies by. It doesn't feel like that long.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't feel like that long since me and you broke up or since you met your current boyfriend.
And sometimes it feels longer. It gets crazy.
Yeah, it goes back and forth.
Yeah.
When you've known someone so long, it can go back and forth like that. Sometimes you won't see them for 2 weeks and it'll feel like a lifetime. But sometimes you'll go a couple years without seeing someone and then you'll see them and it'll feel like they never left.
I wonder, that's probably how it's going to feel when I get to see Brittany again. Shout out to Brittany if I send her this podcast. That's my best friend of 15 years. And I haven't seen her in person since she was pregnant with her first child. And
how long ago was that?
Her oldest will be she just turned 5. So it's been almost 7. It's actually been almost 7 years since I've seen Brittany in person. Because Brittany...
Well, how long ago was it that we went to...
From my grandma's, it was 2015.
Wow, that's crazy.
Because she was in the early stages of her pregnancy when I saw her.
I remember her being pretty pregnant when I met her.
No, she was only like, 12 weeks on then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't as noticeable as I remember.
Well, Brittany's always been like, she's tall.
Right. Do you still keep in contact with her frequently?
I mean, when you've been friends for 15 years, frequent can, vary. But we talk regularly, yeah. Sometimes we go 6 months. Sometimes it's just a couple weeks. But yeah, we keep in contact. That's
good. I mean, some people, no matter the frequency, it doesn't matter. They're always going to be in your lives.
Oh, yeah. That's my sister. Like, we grew up together. Like, we've been friends since I was 13 and she was 12.
Wow.
And I'm 27 now. And she will be 26 this year. So. That's
crazy.
Yeah. Fun fact, you guys have the same birthday.
We do. We do.
But yeah, that's my sister.
Well, that's a pretty good place to branch off to my first subject I want to talk to you about. Where are you from?
Oh, yeah. I'm not a native Kentuckian. I grew up in South Carolina. I grew up I don't want to say everywhere in South Carolina because it was mostly the coast, but I grew up in Myrtle Beach, and Conway, and Little River, and Somerville, and Cherry Grove, and, places that people probably don't know about down there, because everyone just knows Myrtle Beach and, Conway. But, it was cool. I had a fairly decent childhood. It wasn't easy, because my mom wasn't around for a lot of it, so it was just me, my dad, and my grandma, and, my dad and my grandma were quite old. Like, my dad was 38 when I was born, so he was an older parent. And my grandma was in her 60s already. So, they were strict, but I didn't have, a bad childhood.
You mentioned your mom leaving. How old were you when your mom left?
I was 4.
You were 4.
I was 4. And I saw her on and off until I was 7, and then I didn't see her again until I was 14.
So 7 years without seeing her.
Or any kind of contact. And I'm not going to get too much into that, but that's the fault of both parents. That's not just my mom's fault.
Right. That's kind of their business.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that, but
Right. I'm sure they both have their ideas and their own opinions of why that happened.
Right. And it's been a long time ago now, so it's not something we bring up often, but for the context of this, it's just something that happened. My mom went through a lot of her own stuff, so did my dad. But it wasn't, the 7 years that I didn't see her wasn't just her fault.
Right.
And then when I got old enough to start really, like, pushing Dad is when he started letting me talk to her again. And not to, like, call my mom out or anything, but she was a drug addict for a long time, and that was a big part of it. She's no longer. She's been sober for 5 years now.
Yeah.
She got sober after my brother died. But
we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that too. But yeah, so she left when I was little. Didn't see her. Saw her when I was 14. Didn't see her again until I was 16, and then I started living with her, which is how I got here to Kentucky.
When you were when she left when you were 4, do you remember understanding at all that she wasn't around, or how it made you feel?
I remember the night she left.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Because when I was that young, it was me, my half-brother David, my dad, and my mom.
How old was your brother?
My brother was, I want to say 10. My brother is, he would have been 11, because he's 7 years older than me.
Right.
So yeah, he would have been 11. He was 11, and my mom would have been 26.
So it's kind of an age difference between your dad and your mom?
Yes, there's 16 years between my mom and my dad. My dad actually went to high school with her brothers and stuff, so he knew her family. Don't want to get too much into that, but all I will say is when they got married, my mother was legally an adult.
Right. That's all anyone needs to know.
That's all anyone needs to know.
So you remember the night that she left? What do you remember about it?
So the night that she left, we were actually supposed to all go out to a fancy dinner. I remember that because I was putting on my socks that had the little lace around them. Shout out to 90s babies, especially girls, because you'll know what I'm talking about. But I was putting them on, and Mom and Dad had started, like, yelling and fighting and stuff. And it got to a point where I remember Dad saying, "Get the F out."
You can cuss.
Okay. My dad said, "Get the fuck out." So my mom called, I think she called Billy, which is my brother's dad. And he came and got her and David. And I didn't see her again until I was 7.
Do you remember what it felt like, her not being around from 4 to 7? Or is that all kind of fuzzy?
A lot of that's fuzzy because I was so young. I mean, I definitely remember her not being around, but I don't think I really realized how much it affected me till I hit middle school. And,
So did you not recall how it started affecting you until she was almost back in your life?
Yeah, because I had hit that point of, like, being around other teenage girls, and teenage girls can be mean. And, almost everyone that I went to middle school with had their mom in their life.
Did you ever get bullied for that?
I got bullied a lot in middle school.
So anything they could find to throw at you,
Oh, yeah. It was every day. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to take away from, like, the podcast, but I will say in 7th grade, I missed 60 days of school because I was afraid that they were going to stab me.
Wow.
Or do something to, like, actually hurt me. Like, more than just, like, push me or, like, hurt my feelings or whatever. Like, they were violent towards me.
Was it the area was kind of rough in general? Or?
Yes, it was a poor area.
Okay.
Shout out to anybody from Mullins, South Carolina, but that's where I met Brittany. And if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't have got through middle school. Like, I mean, looking back, in some ways it seems silly, but, like, at the time it was very real. And, like, I didn't have any friends besides Brittany. And if it wasn't for her, I probably would have done something that as an adult, I would have regretted.
How old were you? Was it not until middle school when people started to point it out? Or how old were you when you started to realize, my mom isn't around. This isn't normal.
I mean, in some ways it started as early as kindergarten, but I think I was able to, like, shrug it off easier when I was younger. It didn't affect me as much. But as I got older, it started to affect me more because once, you hit a certain age, like, especially with the way that I grew up, like, not having a mom, especially in the South. Are you kidding me? That was rough. Like,
now from 7 to 14, when you didn't have any contact with her, did your dad or your grandma or anyone mention her, or was it just kind of no one talked about her? Or
anytime I tried to bring her up, they would immediately shut me down. They were like, "We don't talk about your mom," like, or "I'm not having this discussion with you," or "Your mom left and that was her choice and that's it." Like,
that had to be really hard as a confused kid, like trying to figure stuff out, to not even be able to have that conversation about why she's gone, or is she okay, where's she at, does she not love me?
Yeah. There were definitely times where I questioned if she loved me. I definitely remember having those moments. And I remember actually asking Dad one time, we were in his truck going home, and I was like asking him why I couldn't see Mom and why I couldn't talk to her and stuff. And
how old were you?
I think I was 6 or 7. It was like right before I started to get to see her again. And I think it's part of what pushed Dad to let me see her, or let her see me, however you want to put it. Because I was literally like crying and begging him to let me see her or talk to her. And he was like, well, she made her choice. And then I think what broke him is when I asked, like, does Mom love me? And he didn't know how to respond because he had been putting her down for so long to me at that point. So I think that's part of what let him make me be able to see her.
So was it, had she wanted to see you throughout that time?
Yes.
And he wouldn't allow it? He just
wouldn't let her, yes. And technically she had visitations. But at one point, I think she had missed a couple. And so Dad, like, this is just an assumption, like, just stuff I've, like, realized as I got older, but what probably happened is she missed a couple weekends, so he probably went and got a thing that said she couldn't visit anymore, so, and then he just made it impossible. And we moved a lot when I was a kid. And
why did you move around so much?
I found out later as an adult that a lot of the reason we moved around so much wasn't just because of Dad's jobs. It was because he didn't want Mom to know where we lived. And that was a secret he kept from me for a long time.
Cats are getting kind of crazy.
Yeah, that scared me a little.
That's having cats. You hear random booms.
Yeah.
Outside a room, and just the cat. Hopefully just the cat.
Hopefully it's just the cat.
No, it's just the cat's being crazy. So you said you didn't realize until you got older, but you now and you throughout your life, how do you feel like growing up without your mother around has affected you as an adult?
I think it's made me very wary of people, because even though I have a relationship with her now and I love her dearly and things have been good, especially since she's been sober, she made a lot of promises and broke them a lot. And there's been so many times where, like, she broke my heart, and it's affected my trust of people and how I view, like, I won't, like, you have to prove it to me. Like, you have to prove to me that I can trust you, because I've had so many people use me in that way because of my mom. Because I'm always willing to trust and believe, and 9 times out of 10, I usually end up getting bit. So you think that kind of taught you that you can't trust people? Yeah, it's very hard for me to trust people. Even more so now, after certain events in my life, which I'm sure we'll talk about that too, but,
Did it affect you in any other way besides trust? Do you feel like there's things you missed out on not having your mother around?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Just, I mean, all those mother-daughter moments that you just miss out on when your mom's not around for the first time,
Do you feel like, because I grew up without my father, and many times in my life, and even from an early age, I felt like, gender normative thinking and all that stuff, but I felt like I had to teach myself, like, how to be a man and, like, what it means to be a man. No, you had your grandma around, but she was older. Do you think it was hard for you to figure out, like, what being a girl or a young woman meant without having that influence in your life?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult, and I was lucky and had some older, like, there was one individual, I won't put her name out there because her life is her life, but, she was my neighbor, and I was 13 and she was 23, and she took me under her wing and helped me out a lot, but,
In what ways did she help you?
just, like, just little things that, like, a mom would teach you, because she was a mom, she had a little girl herself, but just, like I said, just all those, like, moments, like, and, it's not necessarily that I had, like, some of those moments with her, but, like, there was just, she did a lot of stuff for me. It was, I guess in some ways it was more like she's my big sister than my mom, but, like, she gave me those girly moments, like, where me and her daughter would go to the drive-thru and get McDonald's and, blare, like, boy bands and stuff, and, just that sort of thing.
So you
like,
think she was kind of like a role model at the time when you didn't have, like, a good female role model?
Yeah, because even though we had a lot of fun together, she never, like, put me in any trouble, or, like, she was a very responsible person.
Yeah.
Like, she's a very good mother and all that sort of stuff. Husband was a dick, but we won't talk about that. But she was good for me.
So,
But I've clung to a lot of people like that. Like, I think that's something else, is, like, that's why I think I got manipulated by certain individuals. Like, Melissa and other people.
Right, because you were searching for that, like, mom figure, that female role model in your life. So, do you think that made it easier for you to cling to people that weren't good to you, that you felt could fit that role at the time?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. I need to go to therapy.
I think probably everyone needs therapy.
Yeah, but, like, I really need therapy.
This podcast is not sponsored by BetterHelp, but we are open to the sponsorship.
Yeah. Also, go to therapy even if you don't think you need it. It's good for everyone.
Right. And if you're one of those rare people who, spends
well-adjusted.
Yeah, spends all this time in therapy and you're like, I didn't get anything out of that. Well, okay, maybe you're just well-adjusted and you're fine. Or maybe you need to try a different therapist first. But I think everyone can probably benefit from therapy. And I think ending the stigma around it is pretty important.
Yeah, because even if you're not someone who necessarily has quote-unquote mental health problems, I shouldn't say it like that because I have mental health problems, not to invalidate anyone, but, like, even if you're well-adjusted or whatever, or you don't have depression or ADHD, or you're not neurodivergent or whatever, like, it's just someone to talk to that doesn't know your personal life, and, like, doesn't know you, so they're not going to judge you on your choices, or, like, they're just going to help you through, like, decisions and, like, why you do certain things and help you break bad patterns and things like that. So even if you're not neurodivergent or need therapy, still maybe go see a therapist. Might help you.
I think we all have demons, no matter who you are.
We all got them skelly boys in the closet somewhere.
Right, the skelly boys. Whether you're a billionaire or a peasant. Do we have peasant? Is that a thing anymore?
I mean, I'm a peasant. Does that count?
I guess the working class is maybe the new peasant. I don't know. But
certainly feels like it.
Whether you're a king or a peasant, we could all probably benefit from some therapy.
Especially if you're a king.
yeah. A lot of
of
wealthy people or famous people who are have a lot of problems. So reconnecting with your mom when you were 14, how did that happen? It was 14, right?
Yeah, I was 14. So she had met my stepdad at that point. Well, they're not officially married yet, but Scott's my stepdad.
How long have they been together?
At that point, 2 years.
Well, how long have they been together now?
Oh, I think they just hit 14.
He's your stepdad.
He's my stepdad.
Right.
Yeah, he's my stepdad. Love him to death. But I think, well, first of all, Scott's really good for her. He's very patient and understanding, and quite honestly, I don't know how he puts up with her sometimes. But
she's a handful.
I love her to death, but my God. I think that he probably helped her out a lot, and I think that also I was old enough to where I told Dad, I was like, I want to see Mom, and like, if you don't help me get her number and help me talk to her, I'll get Aunt BB to help me. So he finally let me start seeing her, and we had.
Did you call her? Did he call her?
She called me the first time. And then we made plans for her to come get me and spend a couple weeks up here in Kentucky over the summer. I actually stayed right down the road from where I live, because the apartment buildings where I live now, you know, the ones that are behind the bowling alley.
So was she living in Kentucky when you started talking to her again?
Yes, she was. But I came up here, spent a couple weeks up here, went home, and for some reason didn't hear from her for a year and a half. So I didn't
Even though you tried to contact her?
Yeah. That's just kind of how Mom was back then. I mean, it was the addiction. That's all I really,
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Did you notice her addiction when you went to stay with her, or did she hide it?
No, she was pretty good at hiding it. She's always been pretty good at hiding it.
High functioning.
Yeah. Mom's, yeah. Unless she drinks. Well, which she doesn't, again, like I said, she's been sober for 4 years, so obviously none of this happens anymore, but
right.
When she was really bad, she would drink and do pills together, and that was when...
It's a dangerous combination.
That's when things got crazy. That's when stuff was not good.
So you stay with her when you're 14 for 2 weeks. You go back home, and you don't hear from her
for a year and a half.
What did that feel like? How did that affect you?
I mean, what's the best way to describe it? It feels like you've been dropped, like out of a plane or something. It's just so shocking and like hurtful. It's hard to process. Like, there's still some things that my mom has said and done to me that affect me to this day. I won't go into it, because there's some things I just don't want to share. But, it affected me a lot. It made me, like I said, really lose, like, faith in people and trust in people. Like, to this day, it, like, bothers me if people don't keep their promises and stuff. Like, it's very hard for me to, like, let that go. I try, but...
Now, when you finally did hear from her again, how did that happen? Did she call you, or did you call her and she actually answered, or...
I don't remember exactly how she got a hold of me or how I got a hold of her. I think she was trying to get a hold of me, and like she had got a hold of Dad, and she had got a hold of me that way. But me and my dad had actually just finished moving, and he told me that it was up to me but she wanted me to come stay for a couple weeks in the summer before school started back. And I agreed to go, and I said I wanted to go. So I went up there, got a, Greyhound bus ticket. 16 years old.
Now, did you talk to her about her not talking to you for so long, or did you confront her in person?
I mean, we talked about it over the phone and we talked about it in person. But at the time, because I was 16 years old, I was just happy to have my mom back in my life, But 3 days before I was supposed to go home, at the time we were in West Virginia, and I'll get how we got here, but 3 days before I was supposed to go home, my dad called me and told me somehow within the couple weeks I was gone, he had lost the house we had moved to and was living in an apartment in Myrtle Beach with 3 other full-grown men. So he said I could either come stay with him there or I could stay with Mom. So I chose to stay with Mom.
You were 16?
Yes.
Wow, that's a really heavy decision to put on a 16-year-old. To think that...
And especially when I expected to go back home and, see all my friends and go back to school and,
Right.
It was a huge... I mean, I cried for days over it. It still messes... that's something that still messes with me. Even though I love my life here and I'm very happy here, it fucked me up, yeah.
Oh, I bet. Because it's you expected to come see your mom for a little while and then go back to the warmth and safety of home.
Yeah.
With your dad and your grandma.
Well, my grandma didn't live with us then.
Okay. She
was living with my aunt at that point, because she needed, not care necessarily, but she didn't need to be out living in a trailer. My aunt has a house, so, But
you still expected to be, near her and near all your friends.
Yeah, and my, where I grew up, yeah. I didn't expect to literally have to uproot my life and move halfway across the country from where I was,
So, so you ended up staying with your mom?
Yes.
Okay.
We lived in West Virginia because my mom and my stepdad work with thoroughbreds. My stepdad's a trainer. My mom's a groom. And, so we lived up there, until the meet ended at Mountaineer, which is the racetrack up there. And so we packed up all our shit and moved here to Kentucky.
Now, how long were you there?
It was only for a few months.
Okay.
It was June or July again. It was summertime. And we were there till, I think, the first week of September is when we moved here to Kentucky. So it was just a couple weeks before my 17th birthday.
Okay, let's step back from there and let's talk about your dad. So your dad, I think this is going to be important to the story of Sarah. What did he do when you were growing up? What was his job?
Oh, my dad's a chef. My dad's a cook. He also back then he did junking as a part-time thing as well, which for anyone who doesn't know what that term means, my dad would go around, especially to Charleston on Sundays, because that's when they'd do all the trash, and a lot of people would clean those old houses out. So he'd basically go around and look in the quote-unquote trash for valuable antiques and then sell them at the flea markets on Sundays. He'd been doing this for years, way before I was born. My dad did Storage Wars and stuff before it was a TV show. So my dad's been doing that for years and years and years, but he's professionally a chef. He went to school for that.
Now, he owned restaurants, right?
Yes, he owned 3 restaurants.
Do you remember him owning the restaurants, or was this before you were born?
That was before I was born. The last restaurant he opened was, he didn't ever even technically get to open it. He had one restaurant that I can't remember the name of, and then there was Gay Dolphin Snacks. Or not Gay Dolphin, sorry, Dolphin Snacks. Gay Dolphin is a gift shop in Myrtle Beach. It's been there since 1931. Shout out to Gay Dolphin. But
if Gay Dolphin would like to sponsor it now.
I mean, if you would.
Yeah.
No, but my dad had my mom's dad had passed away, and my mother had gotten inheritance, and they decided together that they were going to open another like, snack shop. And they had bought the building and just bought all the equipment, and then Hurricane Hugo hit South Carolina, which...
What year, do you know?
It was 89.
Okay.
And it was the worst...
You were born in 94.
Yes. It was the worst hurricane to hit South Carolina since, like, the 30s.
Wow.
So, his brand new restaurant ended up getting destroyed, and everything just flung down the beach. So that's when my dad's owning restaurants career ended. And then from that point on, he mostly managed them.
And the severity of that hurricane can't be understated because South Carolina is no stranger to, like, tropical storms and hurricanes. So the worst one in 60 years, like, that's a pretty bad...
It was bad. It was, I think, a Category 5 hurricane.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it just wrecked Myrtle Beach.
Just wrecked Myrtle Beach, yeah. And, they actually created two laws that I'm aware of because of that. One, that was the year, I believe, that they made it where you can't drive on our beaches anymore because the dunes are supposed to be a natural protection against storms and stuff. And because people have been driving on the beach for so long, they destroyed a lot of the dunes. And then two, fun fact, one of the reasons why beachfront property is so expensive in Myrtle Beach is because... any house that was built after 1989, you have to have housing insurance on in order to get it repaired in event of, like, natural disaster. The state will no longer pay for it if it's not been grandfathered in, which is a weird law, but right. Some fun fact, I guess.
Some not so fun facts about
hurricanes and living in Myrtle Beach.
So, when I say this, all the love in the world to chefs and restaurant owners, but your dad, being a chef and restaurant owner, they are a type of people that are not known to be the most, we'll say, agreeable of people. It's a rough industry, and it's a rough job, and people doing that tend to be a little rough around the edges, we'll say. With that being said, what was your relationship like with your dad growing up?
I will say this. I love my dad, but my dad's the kind of person who ruled with an iron fist covered in a velvet glove. My dad was that person. Like, if you just did what he said and what he asked you to do, my dad was a cool person. If you make my dad angry, it's a whole nother ballgame. He was... a very loud, angry person when he got angry. Like, and I think that part of that does come from being a chef.
Right. Like, chef means chief. Yeah. You're the chief of the kitchen. Yeah. You're supposed to direct people and tell them what to do.
Yes. And my dad was not afraid to yell and be threatening. You know, so that definitely transferred over into my home life. Yeah, my dad was a good dad, and, you know, he wasn't afraid to, like, hug me or say I love you to me or things like that, but at the same time, I knew from a young age not to piss my dad off. Like, that was the last thing I wanted to do, because the consequences weren't usually very pretty. Like,
what do you mean? Give me an example.
I mean, the first time I can really remember doing something, like, bad, I think I was 6. And my dad had brought home this old Tonka toy thing. And it was, like, one of those mini, like, tool sets, but it was real tools and real wood, just miniature. And I was told to leave it alone. So...
Now, this was like an antique, like a collectible, something he intended to resell.
Yes. And I had gotten a couple pieces of the wood out because it was that, like, really soft, like, wood.
Yeah.
And had nailed some pieces to a 2x4 block that he had sitting in the back. And when he got home and he saw me using it and stuff, he yanked me up and took me in the bedroom and beat me with a leather belt. Wow. So my dad could be very aggressive, and stuff like that didn't happen often in my lifetime. Like, that wasn't, like, a daily occurrence or anything.
Right. And times were different when it came to disciplining children back then.
Well, and especially in the era my dad grew up in.
Right.
My father was born in 1956. You know, his dad and my grandma, his mom, you know, they both hit their kids. So, you know, and then, of course, my dad's dad committed suicide. So, you know, my dad just had a lot of things that happened to him, too. You know, his brother died, and so I don't want to, like, say that it's not his fault, but, like, I just don't think he knew how else to handle it.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
So you think he kind of passed some of that down onto you?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Now, but you said that you never felt like you went without love?
No, I do definitely think that my dad loves me. I've never questioned that my dad loves me. I just don't think he knew how to deal with disciplining me other than making me fear him in order to respect him and not do anything that was going to get me in trouble. Though there were some things that got me in trouble that other kids would get in trouble for, and then there were some things that I didn't get in trouble for that other kids would have definitely gotten a lot more trouble for.
What do you mean? Give me some examples.
For example, okay, so I got caught smoking in the bathrooms at school one time in middle school. And,
cigarettes?
Mm-hmm, yes. And I got suspended, and the principal even told me that if I wasn't, like, I wasn't, like, good, like, my grades were bad, but behaviorally I was a good kid, and that was a problem at that school. So he literally told me, like, I would have been expelled if I wasn't such a well-behaved student. And I got home, and I literally was already, like, crying, going to tell my dad about it. And I told him that I was suspended for a week because I got caught smoking in the bathroom. And he was like, okay. Like, he wasn't even mad about it. He was like, how am I going to be mad at you for something that I was allowed to do when I was in middle school and high school? And I just...
Interesting perspective.
Yeah. And, like, I still, to this day, it's like, how did I get away with that? But, like...
Did your dad smoke at the time?
Oh, yeah. My dad's... up until, like, 5 years ago, my dad was a smoker his whole life. And my dad just turned 66, so...
Wow, so stopped when he was around 60, 61?
Yeah. I mean, I think their mom said, like, in their 30s, or in his 30s or 40s, he quit for, like, some years, but mostly his whole life, yeah. But...
How strict... Now, you said the discipline was rough if you disobeyed him, but how strict was he when you were growing up? Like, did he make you lists of chores that had to be done, or was he okay with you going out and hanging out with your friends? How strict and how protective was he?
So that's where it gets kind of, like, weird. So my dad was very strict about me getting my chores done and having good grades and stuff like that. But he also understood that, like, I got bullied a lot and didn't have, like, a lot of friends and things like that. But also my dad worked 70 plus hours a week. So I got away with a lot. But also my dad expected me to be independent. Like, he didn't care if I wanted to go hang out with my friends that lived a 2-mile walk away, as long as he didn't have to drive me and all my chores were done and I didn't have any homework. So, like, I had this weird, like, freedom to do almost whatever I wanted, as long as I didn't disrespect him or make him angry when he was at home, or I didn't do anything in school to get myself in trouble.
Do you think having that level of freedom that maybe not a lot of kids did, how do you think that affected you? Do you think that helped you?
I mean, it definitely helped me, like... How do I put this? It definitely helped me, like, not need other people. Because not only did I grow up independent, I was an only child, essentially. Because even though I had a half-brother, I didn't grow up with him. And my dad was older, and my grandma was older, so, like, I was expected to take on a lot and do a lot. So, like, I did almost all the chores. Like, I did dishes, I swept, mopped, cleaned the bathrooms, did laundry, because even though my grandma could do it, it was hard for her. So, the only thing that I didn't really do a lot of was cooking. I mean, I still made myself food and stuff, but, like, Nana did make dinner and things like that. But, it just made me not, like... It just made me not need people. Like, I can be alone for months at a time and, like, be okay.
Yeah, even when we were in a relationship and living together, you always kind of had this, as long as you're able to hang out with your significant other or whatever, that you didn't need a lot of social interaction. And even, with your significant other, you need a lot of your own space and your own time alone.
Mm-hmm. And that's because I spent a lot of time alone. I got used to not having other people around. It wasn't really until me and Brittany started hanging out a lot that I had someone that I wanted to be around a lot. And even then, I had to take breaks from her. Like, I love her to death. But when we were, especially, like, when I was a, like, teenager, like, 14, 15, like... We would spend entire summers at each other's houses. Like, we'd spend 2 weeks at my house, 2 weeks at her house. But sometimes I'd have to just, like, go home by myself for a week because I need to be alone because I was raised that way.
Do you think you're more of an introvert?
Oh, definitely. I can be social, and I do enjoy being around people, but not for long periods of time and not... a lot of strangers, unless it's like a concert or something, then it doesn't bother me so much.
No, I think, not saying it's like this for everyone, but I think in general, people misunderstand what it means to be introverted and extroverted. Now, extroverted means that you recharge through social interaction.
Yes.
Introverted means that you recharge through alone time. A lot of people hear the word introverted and they think that you don't like to be social at all. And that's not true. You do like to be social, but you recharge during your alone time, your me time.
Yeah, and being social takes a lot out of me. Like, going to a party with just, like, 15 or 20 people, that takes a lot out of me. Like, if I go to a party or something, you won't see me again for, like, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out.
I mean, a lot of people think... because I do have a reasonably active social life and I like to do things like podcasts and talk to people, people think that I'm an extrovert because I'm a natural performer and I like to...
You are such an introvert.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm a natural performer and I enjoy being the center of attention in social situations and whatnot. But yes, I do have those tendencies, but I recharge through being alone and having time to myself.
You hate when you have to consistently be around people all the time.
Yes, even like roommates.
Yes.
It's like too much.
I know.
That's one of the reasons why me and you connected so well and did work so well for so long, is that we're very similar in that way, I think, in that we could be in the same room, but do our own thing completely separate from each other, and that was okay. There are some couples that don't do that, or maybe don't do enough of that. But I think we connected really well in that way.
That was one of my favorite things about our relationship, is that we were able to be together without having to interact.
Right. Just enjoy each other's presence, but without having to...
entertain each other.
Or expend any energy into the other. And that was okay.
Yeah. Because it's not like we didn't, like, make time for each other or do things together, but we are both just those people.
Right.
Like,
and we were both, like, we liked going and hanging out with our friends, like, together on the weekends, but sometimes we were both just like, I just want to stay home, hang out with you, or do my own thing or whatever, and that was okay. And I think that was an important part of, well, how our relationship worked for so long and how our friendship continues to work so well.
Yeah. Also, I think that, you know, like I said at the beginning, like, you know me better than anybody, and there's just certain things that I feel okay talking to you about. It's not that I wouldn't talk to other people about it, but, like, those other people would probably have to ask me about it. Like, I can talk to you about it unprompted. Yeah.
I feel the same way about you. There's just a certain level of connection you get with someone, A, from living with them, and B, from being in a relationship, and if you have both, And we've been through, we might touch on some of this, but if we wanted to tell everything we've experienced and been through together, it would be a 5-hour podcast.
Yeah, I don't think we have time for that.
Yeah.
I
assuredly will have you back on at some point.
I'm sure you will. But yeah, there's no way we could talk about everything.
Right.
Because it would literally be a 4 or 5 hour podcast.
Right. But they're just, everyone listening, there's a lot there.
Yeah. It's been a long, strange journey.
Quite a saga.
Yeah.
So back to you growing up.
Yeah, sorry about the bouncing around. That's probably going to happen a lot.
I was fine. I'm pretty good at keeping the conversation on track.
Yeah, you're good at redirecting me. It's something you've got a lot of practice at.
Oh, come on.
I mean, you know me, I ramble.
You do ramble. You are an excellent talker, but sometimes you need someone to steer the conversation. Be like, okay, you're going off track.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
But I also think that's a sign of a good connection and a good conversation is when you kind of build these little detours.
Yeah.
There's all these detours that come back to the one singular point, and all these breakaway conversations. That's the sign of that you enjoy talking to someone.
What's the fun of the trip if there's no side stops?
Right, you gotta see the sights.
Right, exactly.
But I think that's a sign of a good conversation when there's so much you want to talk about with a person that you can't stick to a straight line.
Yeah, definitely.
And me and you have always been able to do that.
Well, and also, you asked me a week ago to do this podcast, so I've had some time to think about it. So,
which I don't know if that's good or bad, because with Glenn. Last episode I had
great episode, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Our friend Glenn on, and I sprung it on him when he got here.
Yeah,
he was here
he didn't have time to think about it for a week.
So I don't know if that's good or bad, but you specifically said after watching that episode that you wanted to do the podcast.
I did want to do this, and I'm happy that we're doing it. I think it allowed me to think about what I did and didn't want to say, because obviously there's some things that are personal and I just don't want to talk about, and also it gave me time to prepare for it. You know me well enough to know that if you had asked me the day of, I probably would have said no. Right. Maybe you shouldn't ask me a whole week in advance.
Maybe not. But maybe next time it'll be like, hey, do the podcast tomorrow.
Yeah, but I probably would have said no if you sprung it on me last minute. Right. Because I have a lot of anxiety about some of the subjects we're going to talk about. So
spontaneity tends to make you anxious.
Yeah, not always. It depends on the spontaneity in and of itself. But something like this, I probably would have said no.
Something social.
Yeah.
If I'm
when you didn't tell our friends the weekend before last that you were bringing me with you.
It's fine. They love you.
I know they do, but...
So moving back to you growing up in your childhood, so you said your dad worked a lot and you spent a lot of time alone. I'm going to assume that because you grew up also living with your grandmother, that she kind of picked up a lot of the slack or kind of acted as a second parent in some ways.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And the fondest memories I have with her is cooking in the kitchen and watching The Price is Right on Saturday mornings. Or Sunday mornings, because I watch my cartoons on Saturday mornings. But The Price is Right didn't come on until 11. So my cartoons were usually done by then. But my grandma was a very interesting woman. I've got stories... all kinds. I don't want to tell all of them right now because that would take forever, but...
Well, tell me something interesting about her.
She was a spitfire. My grandma, even at, before her health declined and she got the dementia and all that stuff that happened, before it developed so severely, because hers kind of came on very quickly the last couple of years of her life, but before that... 85 years old, my grandma didn't take crap from nobody. She was a spitball. She's definitely where I get a lot of my attitude from. She was a very sassy woman. She didn't give a crap. And I love that about her. My grandma went through a lot. I mean, she had 3 husbands. She lost 2 of them, lost a son. She grew up in the 20s and 30s, so that should tell you. She was born right at the end of the Great Depression. My grandma was born because the Great Depression happened in 29, right? That's when the stock market crashed.
I think so.
My grandma was born in 27. So my grandma lived through a lot of stuff. My grandma was a kid when they invented TVs.
Wow.
Like, when TVs became, like, a widespread thing, like, that's, like, she remembers, when TV became a thing. Like...
That had to be really interesting growing up with her, and hearing all those stories.
It definitely was crazy. Like, so, before Myrtle Beach is the way it is now, it was mostly just farmland and a lot of country and stuff. So, like, before Myrtle Beach got all the development and stuff, there's only, like, 300 people that lived there. Like, in the 40s, there's only, like, 315 residents of Myrtle Beach.
Wow, so she kind of saw it become what it is today.
Yeah. Before all the commercialization and stuff. And, my grandma got chased by snakes. She saw bears, like... she got stalked by a bobcat home one night. Like, my grandma lived a life.
Do you think, growing up with her, kind of, because she was a tough lady and went through so much, kind of taught you, like, the strength of women?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was a very strong lady. Like, even growing up in the time period that she did, like, my grandma was always a lady. Don't get me wrong. But... she didn't take anything from anybody, especially men. I don't think my grandma was a feminist or anything, but she didn't take crap. She didn't handle that. And her dad was a fisherman and went through a lot of struggle and strife himself. And so she learned from him not to take crap from anybody. So she was a very strong-willed individual, yes.
So what was your relationship with her like?
Complicated, like anything in this world, but she was a good grandmother, and I love her, and God rest her soul, she passed away in 2015, but, she did a lot of things that mess with me, especially when I got older, like as a teenager.
Like what?
She'd go through the big one was my privacy. She'd go into my room and go through my things and take stuff out of my drawers and just things like that. And that messed with me. That's why I have such a big issue with privacy now. Like, that's why I won't go and, like, even if it's like a friend, like, even Brittany, like, I've known her for 15 years. Like, if she asked me to go in her purse, I'd probably just bring it to her. Like, so that affected me in a big way. I'm very...
And that juxtaposition, because your dad seemed to be quite the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. So that had to be a difficult juxtaposition to navigate. Like,
there were a lot of fights over that between him and my grandma, yes.
Your dad, like, being pretty respectful of your privacy and letting you do your own thing, and your grandma being a little more invasive and old school. There
were definitely times where they argued about it, for sure. Because my dad didn't like that she went in my room and got into my stuff because he wouldn't let her go in his room by any means, So I think I learned that from him, and also the effects of her going through my stuff. Like, my dad is a very private person too. So I think I learned that from him as well.
Did you ever see your grandmother as... with lack of a mother, did you ever see your grandma as like a mother figure, or was it always something different? Like, this is my grandma.
I never really saw her as my mom. I think just because of the way that I grew up, her ideals were too old-fashioned for me to ever see her as my, like, mom. But she was very important to me, and she definitely had a lot to do with how I turned out. She was the one who taught me my manners, and she taught me how to cook. And
did she and your dad teach you how to cook?
Yeah. I spent more time in the kitchen with my grandma just simply because my dad worked so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, she taught me all the like basics. Yeah.
What's your relationship with like cooking like now? You're good at it. I've eaten
Well, thanks.
Yeah, so much of your food over the years. It's all I don't think I've ever eaten anything that Sarah has made and been like, this is bad. I don't think I've ever gotten that. Do you enjoy cooking or do you have a complicated relationship with it?
No, it's something I definitely love. I mean, I'm sure there is some complicated emotions there. There's certainly been moments where I've been making certain things and like I'll cry or whatever. But
What? Why?
just because it's something I made with my Nana, or it's a special memory sort of thing. But for me, it's an act of love. Like, cooking for people is an act of love. Like,
Something interesting I've noticed about you when it comes to cooking, and a lot of people say this, I'm one of them, that I don't really enjoy cooking for myself very much. I prefer to cook for other people. But there's been many times, especially I was a vegetarian for many years, where you'd spend hours cooking yourself a meal that you worked on like diligently and put a lot of love and care into.
Because I like to spoil myself.
Right. You're like, I deserve this. I'm going to put everything into this.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that was pretty interesting about you because there's not a lot of people I've met that tend to do that, especially people, you were raised partially by a chef. Like,
yeah, most chefs hate cooking, like, at home. They hate it. Like, my dad very rarely cooked at home. Like, it was a treat when Dad cooked at home because, my God, my dad's a great cook.
So you learned your love of cooking from your grandma?
Yes and no, because I did learn it from both of them. I did spend time in the kitchen with my dad, and I have lots of good memories with Dad in the kitchen, but I just spent more time with Nana in the kitchen. And I think I have a pretty good relationship with food because of both of them. Like, it's something that I remember fondly doing with both of them. So.
And when I say cook, like, I don't mean mix up a box of mac and cheese. Like, Sarah makes bread from scratch, like, makes fried chicken from scratch. Like,
Stop.
Any number of things you can think of, she knows how to and is good at making it from scratch. She's been told several times that she makes the best pork chops anyone's ever tasted.
Well, recently it's the fried chicken.
Fried chicken.
You and my boyfriend and basically anybody. I mean, my stepdad specifically requested me to make it on Christmas. So if that tells you anything, and he's been eating a lot of chicken his whole life. My stepdad is 6'6", and he's like 250 pounds. So he's a big boy.
Yeah. So Sarah's quite good in the kitchen. That's what I mean when I say cooking.
Thanks.
I've enjoyed that benefit over the years many times.
I'm sure. But to go back to like me being somebody who, even though I cook a lot for other people, I enjoy cooking for myself because I think it's important to cook for yourself, even if you do like cook, because if it's an act of love for others, why wouldn't it be an act of love for yourself? And
I think it's an expression of self-love to you.
Definitely. And I am a foodie. You know me. I love food. So I like to make things for myself that other people might not eat because I have
adventurous taste.
Adventurous palate, yes. There's a lot of stuff that I want to try that most people would probably be grossed out by. Like, I want to try, like, bugs and stuff. And, I'm weird like that, so.
You're also very set in your ways in some ways when it comes to food. Let's talk about mayonnaise.
I love mayonnaise, but I'm very particular about how much. Like, I like mayonnaise.
Also the brand.
I'm a Hellman's girl. Y'all can come at me if you want, but
Sarah sometimes will be so set in her ways when it comes to food that she won't even like try other brands or other options. She's like, no, this is the best way to do it, or no, this is the correct brand. I don't observe any other options.
I have tried all the other options and they're all freaking gross.
So strong opinions on food from this one.
Duke's mayonnaise, people, y'all can come at me. Like, Hellman's is the best. I don't give a crap.
Unless they'd like to sponsor the podcast. Duke's mayonnaise, hit me up.
I don't want Duke's mayonnaise to sponsor this podcast.
We'll sponsor other ones. So
I only want Hellman's.
So you learned a love of cooking food from your grandma and your dad, mostly your grandma. Who taught you a love of food in general, like the tasting food and really immersing yourself in it?
Oh, that would be Dad. Because Dad was the one who would always make me try stuff. Like, he never forced me to eat anything I didn't really want to eat, but he never let me just not try something. Like, he always made me at least be like, well, I want you to try it. If you really hate it that much, I'll make you something else. Or you can make a sandwich. But, like, he was the one who was like, I want you to try this because I want you to know what it tastes like. And so I think that's why even now, like, I'm very adventurous, like, and not afraid to try things.
Did he take you to a lot of different restaurants to try, or?
He just made a lot of stuff, and Nana made a lot of stuff when I was growing up. Like, he definitely cooked more when I was younger, as opposed to when I got to, like, my teenage years. But even when I was a kid, like, a little kid, like, I was expected to know how to, like, heat up my own leftovers and stuff like that. But, I mean, just my grandma taught me how to make fried chicken and, like, just, making Christmas cookies, and, like, me and my dad used to build gingerbread houses together, and, like, they both shared a love of seafood with me. That's a big thing. Like, a lot of people think that, like, oh, I grew up in the South, so I grew up eating a lot of, like, fried chicken and mashed potatoes and pork chops and beef, which is true, but also big seafood people.
You grew up on the coast.
I did grow up on the coast. I ate a lot of seafood growing up, fish, shrimp, crab, oysters, all of it. I love it.
And then you come to Kentucky and you're like, this is trash. This seafood does not compare.
But you know what, though? The sushi places here are freaking amazing.
We do have some pretty good sushi, surprisingly.
We did just have sushi today.
It's gotta be tough sometimes to, like, go to the store and make fish.
I hate
and you're
it.
like, this isn't a fish market.
I hate it, yeah. That's something y'all just straight up don't have up here is fish markets. That's something that I grew up with. Like, every Sunday, my grandma will go to the fish market and we'd get fresh fish that had been caught that day and take it home and eat it for dinner that night. Like, y'all don't know nothing about that.
So, to kind of put a bow on where your relationship with your dad and your grandma, for both of them, and this is partially so people understand where you came from and what you took from them, but also because I'm curious. So if you could start with your dad, the most important lesson you learned from him, and then the thing that he passed along to you that you wish he wouldn't have.
I think the most important thing I learned from him is to, like, never give up. Like, I got a lot of tenacity from my dad. Like, my dad was the type of person who would literally work 60, 70, 80 hours a week to make sure that, me and my grandma were taken care of. Like, my work ethic and my tenacity I get from my dad. The thing that he passed on to me that I wish he hadn't, the belief that I am not good enough. That I am a failure.
What did he do that made you think that?
Do you want me to wrap this up or not? Because that's another 30-minute conversation. I mean,
I think it's important.
There was a lot. Not having good enough grades in school, not being skinny enough, not, not this, not that. A lot of that type of stuff. A lot of comments.
So it's kind of like a weird mix between never give up, you can do this, but also you can always do better. You're not good enough as you are.
Yeah. But see, the first one I learned through watching him. The second one I learned from being told over and over and over. So.
How did that affect your your self-esteem?
I'm still working on that, so I'll let you know. It affected it a lot. I mean, I love myself, and I've come a long way, I think. But there's definitely things I still struggle with, especially with my body image because of that. My dad used to make a lot of jokes about putting the chain on the refrigerator and stuff like that. So that was hard to hear, as a 13-year-old girl.
But, so your dad would talk about your weight and say it was a problem? And
yeah, and specifically, and I know that there's a lot of other individuals who probably struggle with this too, but specifically my belly. Like, being, not, oh, you need to get rid of that belly, or you'd look so cute if you didn't have that tummy, or, stuff like that. And I heard that my whole life.
Just from your dad, or from your grandma
both
too?
Of them, yes. Wow. So that's affected it a lot. But the biggest impact that Dad had on me positively was that, just don't ever give up. Like, no matter how hard stuff gets, just keep going. Because, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what you think. Things can get better.
Right. You have to put in the effort, but if you do, they can get better.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's true for everyone.
Yeah. For my grandma, she taught me how to be kind and compassionate, and how to care about people. And then the downfall thing is, she destroyed my trust of other people for a long time. Because she never gave me any privacy or even any reason to trust her with, anything deep, like emotionally. So that's something I also still struggle with.
So that's kind of interesting. Something I kind of just noticed is that two of the most important women in your life growing up, your grandmother and your mom, betrayed your trust in very deep ways. And I've noticed about you that you've tended to connect better with men, and you've tended to have more close friends that are men rather than women. I mean, besides Brittany and a select few others. Do you think that negatively impacted your view of women growing up? That you couldn't trust them?
Absolutely. And when I got into middle school, that was only proved to me even more so. And I know that middle school is a hard time for almost everyone. It's not an easy thing for anybody. You're throwing, 300, 13, 14-year-olds into a building together. It's not easy on anybody, but it just convinced me even more that in my eyes, which I'm unlearning, stuff as I get older, but it just made me feel like women couldn't be trusted. Like, they weren't trustworthy individuals. And that's not to say that about all the women that I met in my life, and obviously that's not all women at all, but that's the way I viewed it, especially as a teenager, because my trust had been fucked up so badly by two very important women in my life.
Did becoming friends with Brittany and help to mend that at all? Or did it take some time?
It helped, definitely, because me and her are very close. But she was also in the same sort of situation. Now, her dad remarried a few times. My dad never did. But she never got close with any of them really either, very much. And our dads are the same age almost. Her dad actually just passed away a couple years ago. But it definitely helped mend my relationship with women, but it also, but we were also sort of damaged in the same way, if that makes sense. We'd both been hurt by important women in our lives. So we kind of bonded over that. We both had dads that were older. Our moms both weren't in our lives. And God knows we never listened to any of our stepmoms.
Yeah, trauma bonds like that are tough because in one sense, you can help each other cope and be there for each other and understand what the other's gone through. But on the bad end, you can also sort of reinforce the negativity that you've learned.
But Brittany also had an easier time of making friends. Maybe that's because she was bigger and the other kids didn't want to mess with her because they knew that, let's just say Brittany wasn't afraid to punch or hit or, get in somebody's face. She was very protective of her friends and stuff. So, like, people didn't really mess with her. And after I became friends with her, less people did mess with me. Just because they didn't want to get messed with by her. And my main bully was also one of her friends. I mean, she wasn't really friends with her, it was just sort of one of those weird middle school things.
Yeah.
Where they were cool with each other, but, like, they weren't really friends. But, I think it helped repair my relationship in that knowing I could trust some women. But, again, we also were trauma bonded in that way, especially in the early stages because, I didn't have a mom. And even though, we listened to my grandma and stuff, my dad let me and Brittany do whatever we wanted. And Gary was a little stricter than my dad, but when I was...
Who was he?
That's Brittany's dad. Gary is Brittany's father. But when I was around, he would let Brittany get away with more stuff. So, like, we... I don't want to say we were little manipulators, but let's just say we were very good at getting what we wanted.
I think some people...
out of both of our dads.
...discount the effectiveness of children and especially teenagers at being able... All right, Sarah almost died. She's good.
Yeah, I choked on my drink.
Children and especially teenagers of being able to manipulate the people around them to get what they want.
Especially with me and Brittany because I was an only child and I'm a girl, so I was Daddy's girl. And then Brittany had a brother, but Gary hates Brandon. So, well, he didn't hate him, but, like, he definitely let Brittany get away with more stuff, for sure. And if me and Brittany were together, there's no way Gary or my dad would say no to us.
Right.
There wasn't saying, like...
just those doughy eyes.
Yeah.
Like...
Oh, yeah. For sure. My dad nor Gary... I mean, I'm sure there were a few times where they did say no, but it wasn't very often.
All right, so going back to where you left off with your grandma and your dad, I mean, you took good and bad from them, and I think it's not good to pass down the bad things you do to your children or to the people, to your grandchildren, or to anyone. But I think sometimes with people you love and people who love you, you just kind of have to take the bad with the good and try to at least learn a lesson from the bad. If you can.
Yeah. And learn from their mistakes. Or at least try to. I mean, you're going to make your own mistakes no matter what you do. But, you have to learn from your past in order to move forward.
And I think with there, we're going to take a little break. And then we'll be back shortly.